Welcome to another episode of the Process Podcast. I am sat here today with one Erwan Desvalois. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly because I took French in college. Not my first language, won't be my last. But anyway, we're talking about running. Not just running, but the science of running with things like lactate threshold, VO2 max, running economy, all the sciencey things that my watch tells me I am good at or bad at, depending on the day and if I had drinks the night before. I had so many questions because I want to be a better runner. I have my own running goals, and I bet you do too. And if you are paralyzed with the analysis of the information that your watches and your phone gives you about your running, hopefully this will give you some answers. Welcome to the Process Podcast. Erwan, how are you doing today?
I'm great today.
Tell me, you are a runner and a running coach. You've run today, yes or no?
Not yet today.
Okay. Are you itching to run, or is this something that you can kind of keep at bay?
It's not as itchy as it used to be. Yeah, I used to really want to run and improve and get better. And now I've switched to the other side,
right?
Being on the coach side. And so now I'm like, okay, it's just for fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you an introduction before you introduce yourself is the first time that I met you, it was searching for the subject of, aerobic training and specifically lactate threshold training and VO2 max. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I love about doing this podcast is I'm in charge of getting guests, and that usually aligns with what I'm interested in personally. And if something that I'm interested in personally is something that resonates with the greater audience, running is such a, I don't know why I think this, but it seems like running is growing in popularity again. Mm-hmm. It comes in waves. Right now, the wave is really crashing where there's people running for high rocks, people running for their first marathon, people running for ultra marathons, trail running, triathlons, this, then, there's so many reasons people want to run. And for some reason, I've kind of joined the party.
Yeah.
Right? I used to be a runner myself in triathlon sport, and I coached cross country and track and field when I was teaching in high school in San Diego. And back then I was just like, you run hard as long as you can. And then when you feel like you need to slow down. And then maybe you'll feel like you'll have the energy to do this again. Yeah. So the science of running was not a thing that I was aware of. I knew about pacing, and I had like a pacing watch. Didn't have a heart rate monitor on there or anything like that. So I didn't know anything about these things, or heart rate zones and this, that, and the other. It's all a lot of good science, but as a newcomer again to the sport, it's really confusing to me. So I wanted someone to make sense of this. Lactate threshold, VO2 max, heart rate zones. What are these things and why do they matter? And here in Hong Kong, I think maybe the first place I looked up on Google was Joint Dynamics, is where the facility that you coach at and you train runners specifically for these things. So I just want to really dive into that. We've had our projects in the past, specifically, running me through a lactate threshold training and a VO2 max measurements at Joint Dynamics, and we'll break that down and how unelite of an athlete I may be.
I hope you had fun. Yeah,
it was great. Introduce yourself on all the things that I did not cover about you and your work.
Basically, that's what we do at Joint Dynamics. We look after runners. We help them to run faster. The idea is we always have this first session where it's going to be more of an assessment. And so you mentioned VO2 max testing, lactate threshold testing. These are assessments that are metabolic pretty much. So in this test, we want to understand metabolically how they function, what's their current fitness level. These are fun tests to perform, obviously, because as you did yours, people have to go all in or all out. And this is how we basically measure all this stuff. Yeah. So sampling the blood, understanding what are the heart rate zones, what's the speed of the lactate threshold, what's the heart rate.
So looking at these things, and when you take on a client and you want to measure the lactate threshold and the VO2 max, why are these so important in terms of assessing their ability level, their performance capabilities? Why has science coalesced on these two things specifically? What's the idea behind that?
So it's a good question because actually one of the two is not so important to know
Mm.
if you want to run a specific running program, or if you're being coached by a running coach, running specialist,
Yeah.
whatsoever. Um, it is the VO2 max itself that is not so important to know.
Okay.
Yeah. At least to understand what are going to be your intensities,
Okay.
or what speed you need to run at, or what heart rate you need to be, in what range you need to be, basically, when you're running your intervals. The simple reason is because if I get a new athlete that's coming to see me, and this athlete is wanting me to train for race, um, regardless the VO2 max itself,
Yeah.
if it's going to be 41, 53, 68, 77, it doesn't really matter, because whatever your VO2 max is, it's not going to help me to design a proper running program with specific speeds and intensity. To me, the most important one is going to be your lactate threshold.
Okay.
Yeah. Simply because based on your lactate threshold and the speed at which you're running it, I can design a proper running program around it and know exactly at what speed you need to be running your lactate threshold intervals, as well as to know what is your maximum heart rate, and if we're hitting the right range when you're running your lactate threshold sessions, pretty much.
So when we're talking about, a client comes to see you and say, "Hey, I want to improve my 5K time, or I want to run my first marathon."
Yeah.
You're going to test both of these things, but the one for training that's going to be more day-to-day basis relevant will be that lactate threshold.
So I'm not even going to try to test the VO2 max itself.
Okay.
Although having a greater VO2 max is going to be more important for the one training for 5K, 5,000 meters, than it is for someone who's going to be preparing a marathon.
Okay.
Simply because you reach your VO2 max within that range, that time range that it takes for someone to run a 5K,
Okay.
which is going to be somewhere between 10 minutes and 20, 25 minutes. So in essence, someone who's got naturally a better VO2 max than someone else is intrinsically already better potentially at running a 5K, if we compare things that are comparable.
Yeah.
Now, I use VO2 max training or VO2 max sessions for people who are training for marathons too.
Yeah.
But it's not so much of an important element in the training, simply because I use it rather to improve the speed of the VO2 max, or to push the ceiling of the maximum oxygen consumption.
Okay. So this is where I have a very simple question, because I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing with my running? And then I realize I don't even know what's relevant. So can you break down real quick, specifically, what is VO2 max?
Yeah.
And what is lactate threshold training? Lactate threshold. How are those two similar, and how are those two different?
Yeah. So you mentioned actually 2 out of 3 that are important.
There's a third.
Yeah, there's a third. Yeah, in running, a third player. There are 3 players, and they really interact with each other. They play a role in their own way.
They are inextricably linked.
Yeah, exactly. Completely linked. So there's VO2 max, lactate threshold, and running economy. So VO2 max, just to give a simple definition, because I think people have seen it online again and again and again. It's basically your maximum oxygen consumption. So that's how much your body is able to process, how much oxygen your body is able to process for the working muscles, pretty much. So that's one thing. A very good one would be something around 90 milliliters per kilogram of body mass, right? Consumed per minute. So it's quite an equation that is a bit long.
Yeah.
Most people are going to be sitting somewhere around 50 if they're a little bit fit.
So the number is the unit of milliliters per
kilogram per minute.
So it's basically how much your muscles are actually using oxygen.
Extracting oxygen, in the tissues,
Okay, and therefore fueling the body, fueling the muscles efficiently to perform the physical task.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, This is why I think it's kind of a bit overrated, because it's a simple metric to understand, because it's just a number. So people are gonna have this number, on the watch when they go running, and because the watch is giving you an estimate of your current VO2 max,
Right.
and so they'll be like, oh wow, mine is 49. What about yours? It's 58. And so they're gonna be comparing themselves with
I
others.
see. But it's like, is what you're saying is it's a bit of an abstract number.
It is a bit because of the nature of running itself, and it's only one of the three players.
Yeah.
Then having a bigger VO2 max is nice and good for a 5K runner, not so much for a marathon runner, and even less so for a ultra long distance runner.
Okay.
But it's also the most simple metric for people to understand.
Okay.
So this is why it's got a bit of hype.
Yeah. I'll tell you myself, is of these tests, and I remember when you said coming in for doing both of these tests, the VO2 max one was the one I was more excited about because of the idea of like I get to put on this Darth Vader mask while I'm running, and I get to experience a thing that
cool,
it looks like all the elite, like an Olympian does that.
Yeah.
I'm not anywhere near an Olympian, but I want to know what that experience is like. I've gotten my finger pricked for everything from the doctor, so that's just another thing. So the VO2 max looks cool. Now, going to lactate threshold training, why would this be, I guess, quote unquote, more useful? And what is it?
So what is it? Yeah, so true. I think this one is a bit harder for people to understand.
Okay.
So again, I can give a bit of a simple
Sure.
definition of it, which can be found online as well. But basically, we are producing lactate constantly right now. Lactate is a byproduct of the combustion of oxygen.
Sure.
Yeah. So what happens is, as we're doing nothing, we're producing about 1 millimole of blood lactate per liter of blood. But the body processes it and it clears it out all the time.
Right.
So it's an accumulation of blood lactate that we're trying to measure with the intensity increasing. So what happens is, if I start running now, you start running now, there's going to be more lactate that is going to be produced, but it's still going to be cleared out. Past a certain intensity, so past a certain speed, as you start running faster and faster, you're going to be building a bit more lactate in your bloodstream. So you're going to go from 1 to 1.7, 2.3, 2.8, and so on. But still, your body is still clearing out lactate as it's being produced. There's the capacity of building it, but clearing it out as well.
Right.
And it stays at what we call a steady state of blood lactate accumulation. That's a very important word, I think, because it's that steady state that's going to be important when you're doing your training, and not go beyond it, basically.
Okay.
Now, we're going to go faster and faster. You're going to run faster.
Right.
And at some point, you're going to switch to another energy system. So energy being produced purely aerobic to energy that is being produced anaerobically.
Right.
And blood lactate is going to accumulate without being cleared out at the same speed, basically.
Yeah.
And this is your lactate threshold.
And this is my limited understanding, because I'm a coach, but I'm not so much a doctor or a scientist. Lactate becomes more of a byproduct because of anaerobic training. That's the nature of creating energy. The byproduct of those kinds of contractions once you go anaerobic is going to be lactate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
This is the byproduct. Yeah. That is coming from the intensity of.
And
your
this is where you feel that muscular fatigue and failure.
Yeah, so it comes with these. There are other byproducts that are being made within the body, like hydrogen ions and so on, which are giving you this feeling of fatigue and the burning feeling as well. But basically, once you pass that intensity, and for yours, we measured it actually. So you basically reached your lactate threshold at 5 minutes 10 per kilometer. And that's an important metric to know, because
meaning that if I stay at 5:10, I'm still able to clear out lactate just enough to be able to sustain this pace.
Exactly.
If I hit 5:10 and a half or 5:11, for
5 minutes 00.
yeah.
So if you go a bit faster per
Yeah.
kilometer, so
Yeah.
down 505,
I see.
500,
Yeah.
450, you are
I see.
beyond lactate threshold,
Yeah.
and therefore lactate keeps accumulating in your bloodstream. So you're not at that steady state
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
and that becomes a bit harder. This is when you start
Okay.
panting and so
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
So that was my result. You said 510?
Yeah, 5 tenths
Okay.
per kilometer. Yeah.
This is where maybe this is the funny part about anyone who tries to be a high performing athlete is like, I hate hearing these numbers because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up in Google. It's like, is 510 per kilometer good? Is it bad? Like, am I a shit athlete or not? Do I have any hope in being a good runner? You know?
No, yeah, sure. There's no good or bad number, at the end of the day, what's important for us is to measure what it is.
Yeah.
And then you've got a strategy in place just to improve it. So
Okay.
improving your lactate threshold,
Yeah.
in a sense, means you're going to be running faster at it.
Okay.
So you're going to go down 5 minutes per K, then 450, and so on. Yeah.
Because that's where adaptations occur, right?
Yeah.
Just going just beyond to let the body be able to kind of get accustomed to this pace and train itself to clear lactate at a faster rate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also to be able to sustain this intensity for longer as well.
Okay.
Because as you go in any race, really, whether that be a 5K, a high rocks, a half marathon, a full marathon, and so on, it's always going to be a matter of speed, right? So you go onto a speed and you need to maintain that speed as long as possible. So there's this length that is important as well.
I think this is maybe why when you're saying these are related, I could then sense the relation to lactate threshold and running economy. Because if you're reaching your lactate thresholds, this is where it becomes easier to show like the faults in your training economy, in your running economy. Like if you have, a hitch in your step, or if you're taking too few steps per minute, that's going to become more of an issue when you've reached your physical limit.
Yeah, and as you said as well, running economy plays a role in this as well, because we haven't defined yet what is running economy.
Yeah, go for it.
But let's go for it. Yeah. Running economy is the oxygen consumption at a sub-maximal speed. So rather than measuring how much oxygen you're consuming as a maximum, we are measuring how much oxygen you utilize at a sub-maximal speed, which is going to be, let's say, your marathon speed and so on. And this is a metric that can be improved always more and more, basically. Your lactate threshold can be improved always, always, always. Your running economy as well. But your VO2 max is limited. Your VO2 max is limited. You were given your VO2 max itself by your parents, pretty much.
Okay, so this is the genetics at play.
Yeah, this is the genetics in here. And it's decreasing from around 25, 30 years old.
Okay.
1% every year.
So falling back in love with running at 39 years old.
Pretty much,
I have ceilings there.
So, and there's a part that is that can be improved, 10 to 15% of it. Okay. Can be improved over 3 months, 4 months, maybe, if you're doing it pretty well.
Okay.
But past this, you just kind of maintain it, and you need to improve the two other players. Yeah. You need to become better at your lactate threshold speed and improving your running economy. Okay. And these are the ones that are going to be helping you to run faster. Yeah.
Okay. When you're saying running economy and that sub-maximal speed, is this where we start talking about zone 2 training and doing longer distances and longer sessions of easier runs to be able to build up your running economy, or is this a different concept?
It's a different concept, yeah. But there's a lot of the running that needs to be done over years to improve your running economy. Running economy can be improved in the gym as well, or performing running drills. So we're talking about being more bouncy, having a better muscle recruitment, better strength. All this stuff can be improved, and that helps for your running economy, creating more stiffness in the calves, in the Achilles, dropping weights as well. Yeah, that improves your running economy. Typically, I like to give examples, right? Yeah. But I have one of my athletes who have been training for years now, and I think it's about a year and a half ago. She beat her PB on marathon, so she went from 3:33 to 3:29, something like this. So 4 minutes. And this is because we trained for it,
Yeah.
and so we managed to shave off 4 minutes. After that, she wanted to be a much faster runner. She decided to lose weight. And so she went on this crazy diet where she lost 8 kilograms.
In the span of how long?
This was over 6 months.
Okay.
And I saw her getting slimmer, right?
Right.
And it's what it is, right? People run, whether they are overweight or not, it doesn't matter really. What matters is that they're enjoying it. But obviously, it came with also a whole lot of better results.
Yeah.
We trained for a marathon after that, and she went down, so dropping 8 kilograms, right? But she went down 309. And this was last year. And now she just performed another race yesterday at Tokyo, and she went down now. So she didn't drop more weight, but we just trained more intensively, and I tried to increase the mileage and so on. And she went down 3 hours 05. Yeah, so shaved off.
So she went from 3:33 to 3:05 in the span of how long?
Maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah,
is that
2 years? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay? Just for some context, is that a typical improvement that you'll see in someone doing dedicated training, or is that like off the map, like really impressive?
No, you can. I mean, for someone who's been running for a long time, that would be impressive. But here, the whole point was more like I improved her running economy.
Yeah.
I mean, she by dropping a lot of weight, like basically lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But of course, we worked on other things, right? Worked on, yes, VO2 max is one thing. Her lactate threshold has improved drastically in between. She went from 440 per kilometer, 4 minutes 40 per kilometer, down to 415.
Okay.
So all of these comes together, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just saying, the idea is you gotta play around the 3 players really much.
Okay.
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode with a quick shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. I've been using this journal for 2 years and it has made a massive impact on my physical, but mostly my mental well-being. It is a guided journal backed by neuro and behavioral science, which I actually didn't know at the time. It has questions for you to answer at the start of the day, at the end of the day, end of every week, end of every month. And it's brought so much self-awareness to me of the things that positively and negatively impact my life. So if you're someone who cares about your physical and your mental well-being, which I think you do because you listen to this podcast, then go and grab yourself a Today Well Spent. Use the discount code THEPROCESS, one word in capitals, to get your discount.
Now, one of the things that I've realized is a common reason why people might be considering this more often than before is, the rise of fitness tracking that looks for these things specifically. For my own specific thing, when I saw you, I didn't have a smartwatch, and I asked you about yours. Like, you have a Coros, that's cool. My friend wanted me to get one. I ended up getting a Garmin because it was on sale, and like that's what I've used before in the past. And I've had it for about a month now, and it'll tell me things like my lactate threshold, and it gives me a pace. It gives me a VO2 max, and it gives me a number. And these are the numbers that now I'm like, oh, I need to improve these, because actually the UI on my watch is telling me you're improving on these things, or you're flatlining on these things, or you're getting worse on these things. So like, because of these simple numbers, it's making me chase improvement on them. You as a coach who knows about these concepts before the watches existed, are you seeing people kind of being obsessed over these numbers more than before? And what does that mean for you?
Yeah, they are definitely being a bit obsessed, especially if they haven't been educated about it. Let's not forget that these watches, these are all algorithms, right? And the brands are trying to come up with new features, so it's a little more sexy to buy.
For sure.
So now they're trying to give you a lot of data, a lot of metrics, and the more you have, the more it's kind of valuable for consumers, I would say, because they're like, oh, well, this one is now telling me this and that. I want to know. You don't need to know. Some of these metrics are pretty useless.
At least on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah. So it's all algorithm based, right? So when the watch is gonna calculate, give you an estimate of your VO2 max, it's actually not too bad. I would say, Of course, measuring it in a laboratory like how we do and like other places do is the most accurate way of doing it.
Okay.
But the watch is not too bad. I would say you would be around 5 milliliters. Yeah, not too far from it.
Okay. I mean, when like you have my notes there, when you did my VO2 max test, for example, what
Yeah.
number did that come out with?
We had 51.6. Yeah.
Okay, so it's funny because my VO2 max when I did my run yesterday, it said 50.
Yeah,
And it's been 50 for like the last 2-3 weeks. I'm like, whoa, like
Yeah.
that's
There you go.
pretty good.
So I'm giving you a better number than your watch.
Yeah.
This was the actual accurate way
Yeah.
of doing it. But see, it's quite close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not again that it's gonna be useful for you,
Mhm.
because based on this, okay, it might be telling you you're becoming better at this. At
Sure.
least your VO2 max is increasing. But again, we need to not forget that we race to race basically.
Mhm.
So it's not whoever has the biggest VO2 max.
Yeah.
We want to be faster than others, or we
Sure.
want to beat a specific time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you are training typically for a marathon,
Mhm.
for example, or I'm gonna take another extreme example
Okay.
of like Ironman people. So people who are doing Ironman, right? They're gonna be super fit, right? But their VO2 max is gonna drop in the process, really, because they're training for something that is such a long distance that you don't need to have such a good VO2 max to be performing that well. Yeah.
Okay.
And for example, Christian Blumenfeld, who's the world record holder of Ironman, right, which he ran in 7:12. Plus, he did this staged race where they had all the paces and stuff. So he ran sub 7, 6:44 it was.
Per kilometer for the entire
The
marathon.
hours, sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hours, yeah. So
entire
7
race.
hours 12, 7 hours 12, yeah,
Oh, jeez.
the world record, Ironman, and 6 hours 44 in a very staged setup, basically.
Yeah.
And so, but I was listening to one of the podcasts from his coach, who's also a physiologist, and he's basically saying, look, I'm at the best of my shape now for world record. I just beat the world record, but my VO2 max has never been as low as this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting concept where you think, all right, I need to have my VO2 max super high up there.
Yeah.
But it's not serving what I'm doing because I'm
Right.
doing such a long event that
Right.
that I'm only gonna be racing at a smaller fraction of that VO2 max. So the oxygen consumption is never gonna be as far up as your 99% of maximal
I guess because it's
heart rate.
such a long race.
Exactly, yeah.
The utility of that, besides maybe the last 200 meters of the run, if you're racing against someone towards the finish line,
Yeah.
that's the only time it really needs to come into play.
So what happened is in the training, I'm guessing, didn't design the program, but I'm guessing what he did is he did like very long extended bouts of, intervals of running, bicycle,
Yeah.
and swimming, but he never really did that time very fast, typical VO2 max sessions, pretty much. But still, again, you gotta work on what's really necessary for
Yeah.
your race. Yeah.
In that vein, because the kind of runner that I'd love to speak to is a person who's just picked it up, not sure where they're going. Maybe someone, they picked up a watch and all their numbers are when they look at it, Google is like, oh man, all my numbers are shit. Like number one, I guess if you had someone who had room for improvement in all three of those running metrics, what would be the priority and why?
I'd say the priority, you work on your lactate threshold. If you start running or you haven't been running for long, first of all, it's going to be the best way to improve your endurance, just to be able to sustain a specific speed over time, over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
That's the first reason. But then the second reason is if you run at threshold, you're not running at a speed potentially yet, that is dangerous for yourself as a runner. And I'm talking about injuries here. I think a lot of runners make this mistake where they decide to run they decide to run, they want to do a race. I don't know what is the reason of the race, right? Like they lost a challenge, or they're turning
Sure.
40.
Yeah.
Or I want to complete a marathon, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly what
and
I'm
they're
doing
like,
right now.
yeah, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna train hard for it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look online some sessions I can do, and I'm gonna run intervals fast.
Yeah.
Fast intervals, because in people's mind, the harder the better.
Mhm.
The harder you run your intervals, the harder the effort, and the better it's going to be for your running. But the problem with this is it's true, you can see improvement pretty quickly,
Yeah.
simply because of the stress, right? You are running at such high intensity that
Yeah.
a lot of things physiologically are being developed within your body, right? So your heart is getting stronger.
Yep.
The stroke volume is increasing, and so on. But biomechanically, what is going on? There's a lot more stress on the legs, and potentially when people start a running program with VO2 max intervals or anaerobic capacity intervals, they destroy their legs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, it sounds like what you're saying to me is like their body hasn't earned the right to do these harder runs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It needs to be done at a slower speed first. So you're gonna be doing your easy runs easily, slow. You're gonna do it for weeks, so you get your joints ready for it. Your joints, your muscles, your tendons, tendinopathies are going to occur very easily if you put a stress that your body hasn't been used to.
Yeah.
And once you've been doing your running at low intensity like this, so your body has adjusted to that new stress, then you can add lactate threshold intervals,
Okay.
which is what's going to improve your endurance, basically.
Okay. Now, you do have this is the research from my test and stuff like that.
The test, the results.
Yeah.
You want the results, right?
I'm curious about it. I mean, that was one of the things that we would say we would do is like, I didn't ask you about these numbers really until,
Yeah.
hey, let's talk about it in the podcast. So like, cause I was thinking about, right now we were talking about like a theoretical athlete, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not a theoretical athlete. I'm a person who has never run a marathon in his life.
Yeah.
And just started picking up running with the rule of twice per week since January. And I want to carry this on for the rest of the year. And I've been doing just that. I've been basically running 2 times a week, maybe a third one of these weeks in the year so far. But my sessions have been either 30 minutes, 45, and my longest run so far has been 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So kind of just like getting used to running. And right now, my priorities for myself is like just feel good running. Try to hit like 165 and then 170, 175, 180 steps per minute, and seeing if I can chase that and hold that while not like spiking my heart rate.
Yeah.
But other than that, I actually don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So like from your numbers, looking at where I'm at and what my results are.
Yeah.
What is your assessment about like what I need to do about my running?
Let's say you, as you say, you're new to running, and I'm doing your running program.
Yeah.
I'm giving you advices about it.
Yeah.
I would say now you've been running quite a lot, for quite a while at low intensity. You can start doing lactate threshold sessions.
What does that look like?
So it looks like I would always start with a typical 4 by 6 minutes at threshold. So for you, it's going to be 5 minutes 10 per kilometer. You're going to run 6 minutes like this. So first you start with always with a warm up.
Yeah.
15 minutes,
Sure.
Easy slow jog. That's non-negotiable.
Right.
15 minutes easy slow jog. Stop, stretch a bit. You can run a couple of strides. So these are stretches that you run a little faster, just to get your heartbeat up there and better muscle recruitment for the faster session that is coming. And then 4 by 6 minutes. You can take 2 minutes rest in between to begin with. It doesn't really matter if you're taking 1 minute, 2, 3 minutes, because we are raising your lactate levels to that threshold, right? And so we are getting the body used to clearing out lactate at that level.
I see.
So whether there is obviously a gap, right, between the moment and the moment you finish. So when you start, you don't get straight away to that value, which for you was 4.7 millimole. That is your blood lactate values at threshold.
Okay.
You don't get straight away to that level.
Again, I was gonna ask you, is that good? Is that bad? It's just what it is.
So like in brackets, right? If we're talking about that value here,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. For some people, so the conventional number, which you hear at university, is going to be 4 millimole, 4.0. Supposedly, everyone is the same. No, it's not true.
Okay.
I've measured lactate threshold values. So someone who was at a steady state of blood lactate accumulation around 2.8
Oh, wow.
already. And if I was to increase the intensity,
Yeah.
it would go beyond, it would keep going up and so on. Yeah. And that's what it is, right? Doesn't
Okay.
really matter if it's a fast runner, slow runner, beginner, or very advanced.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Right.
For some other people, it's going to be 3.6. For some other people, it's going to be 4.2. And
Yeah.
you are a bit beyond, actually. You are at 4.7. So it's, again, I've measured some people who had lactate threshold around 5.4.
Yeah. But what it means for me individually is I'm going to do this training, and then what we should see over the course of weeks, months, whatever the plan says, an improvement on this to show that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah. Typically, what you would see after doing your 4x6 minutes, you do it once a week, then another day, you can do a block at it, same speed, you run 20 minutes at it, let's say. If you're doing this twice a week and you do it repetitively over 3-4 weeks, we should start seeing some results. So the results are gonna look like your heart rate is gonna be lower at the same speed.
Okay.
So instead of having a heart rate that is around 173, 176 for you, around this value, you're gonna feel easier. So there's the perceived effort, right? The session's going to feel easier, but also your heart rate is going to go lower. It's going to go down 172, 171. And then you'll be telling me after 1 month, you'll be like, oh, I want the sessions, the lactate threshold sessions now are feeling easier. And me, I'd be analyzing your heart rate and I'd be like, okay, I can see there's an improvement because typically your heart rate is also going lower. So this is how it should look like.
And this is where the idea of heart rate zones come in, or is this something else? Yeah.
No, yeah, it comes into this game because if you were at the upper end of your zone 4, let's say, which is what it is for lactate threshold, your lactate threshold range or zone, I define it as your zone 4, the upper end of it. But if you're getting closer to the lower end and you're getting almost like getting into zone 3, that means I need to stress you a bit more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that means, well, he's adjusting to the stress.
Yeah.
His body is taking on the stress properly and is getting better at it. So now, Chris, we need to increase the speed.
Okay.
Because this is not going to stress you enough to get better.
Yeah.
It's a concept of polarization, right? Doing intervals where you increase levels of blood lactate, as well as the levels of oxygen in your intervals, and this is how the body adjusts to this stress and becomes better. Yeah. So now your heart rate is getting lower. I'm gonna get you to run at 5 minutes 00 per k. I'm going to increase the speed by 10 seconds per kilometer because I see there was a physiological adaptation.
When do you start seeing these physiological adaptations? Is it something that, I'm assuming it's not overnight, but I'm curious, does it take something like 6 months, or is it something that is relatively quick?
So this comes down to how much training, how much running the athlete has been doing before you start, training with me, let's say.
I see.
If so far you've been just doing easy jogging, slow jogs, 6 minutes, 6:30, 7 minutes per K. And I'm stressing you with these kind of sessions. We're doing it twice a week. I'm going to see improvements pretty quickly within 4 weeks, 6 weeks already.
You're talking about like noob gains?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we call the principles of diminishing returns.
Right.
So quickly you're going to improve.
Yeah.
And then at some point later on, the improvement is going to be slower. Yeah.
Right. So it's similar to in the weight room, your PRs are going to be fewer and farther between the longer you train.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Correct. But then, I'm going to stress you more with the different speed now. We're going to run again a little faster.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to add other ingredients to the game. I want not only you to be able to run longer at that speed, so
Mhm.
I'm going to increase the volume, extend the time spent at that specific intensity.
Okay.
Let's not forget that running is a matter of speed and matter of extension. We want to run faster, we want to run
Right.
longer. So this is the strategy pretty much for your running. But then I'm going to add other ingredients to it. VO2 max sessions. Here we go. I want to push the ceiling of your oxygen consumption, the ability to process oxygen, your ability even to run at a higher fraction of your VO2 max
Yeah.
when you're running at threshold. So let's say you're running 5 minutes. Now you've improved.
Yeah.
You went from 510 to 500. And so our heart rate goes back up, right? As a result, obviously,
Right.
I'm increasing the speed. So we
Exactly.
go back to the normal range. We're not at the lower end of it. We go back to the upper end of it. And now I'm going to add more ingredients to it. So let's say VO2 max sessions. So I'm going to get you to run very close to your maximum heart rate, not quite at 100%
Yeah.
of your maximum heart rate, but maybe hitting the 97, 98%
Of my maximum.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about hard sessions.
I'm talking about the intensity at which you were going when you did your VO2 max test. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Because that was a pretty dark place that I went to.
It's a dark room.
And then
yeah.
if I were to explain both of these tests, I mean, I almost don't remember the lactate threshold because it just felt like a regular hard run, right?
Yeah.
And you were teaching me how to run and jump off of the treadmill and stop
Yeah.
on the edges of the treadmill. Like that was pretty fun. I didn't really enjoy getting my pinky poked like 2-3 times just because no one enjoys that. But the moment again, like I said, you put on the mask and I was like, oh shit, like you need to be able to, if you cover the hole in front of the mask, you shouldn't be able to breathe, right?
Yeah.
And if you inhale, you feel the suction of the mask. And that happened. And then I was like in it. And then it was like, all right, let's see what we can do. And you said, we're going to push the pace to a certain point, and after that, it's just going to be percentage inclines, right? And I hit the ceiling of the speed, and I was thinking, oh shit, like I can keep doing this. The moment like 2 intervals into the incline increases, there was one moment where you were reaching for the button, and I was like, "Don't you dare!
Don't you dare!
I don't need this right now."
You're like
hand
on my hand.
You can hear me struggling. And then the only thing I remember was Erwan saying, "It's all in your head. It's all in your head."
Yeah,
and I know you're trying to motivate.
You gotta say that.
You're trying to push me, right? And that's fair.
Yeah.
But man, that was a hard test. Now, how often does a runner need to get into that kind of intensity to improve?
That's a good question too, yeah, because too often you see runners that go into that place, the dark place, as you said,
right?
Way too often.
Mm-hmm.
This session is toxic. Let's put it this way. It's damaging to your body. VO2 max sessions are there to make you improve, to get faster and get better. But the amount of lactate that is going through your body is through the roof, pretty much. And for the body to be processing this, it takes a toll. Yeah. So So and it can remain actually in your body for like days, literally.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're doing these too often, you'll see improvement quickly at first over a few weeks because your body is adjusting. You'll be feeling tired, but there's gonna be some adjustment and progression basically in your running. But then after doing these too often over 3, 4, 5 weeks, you get exposed to overtraining, or at least overreaching first.
Right.
So you're gonna have signs of like you can't really sleep well at night. You don't even hit your 97% of maximum heart rate in these sessions, which you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But then you run hard these sessions and your heart rate just can't go any higher.
Yeah.
You get exposed to under recovery, so you can get injured from doing this too often.
Yeah. Like it sounds like inflammation probably increases too.
It's basically bad. Yeah. Too much of it is bad. Yeah. So I'd recommend people to be doing these once every 2 weeks if truly they want to help with their running, basically.
With basically maybe 2 days of recovery afterwards at the very least.
Yeah, you can do to be honest, the day after and the second day after needs to not be of any quality. You can do easy running, but
nothing for adaptation.
Don't you dare trying to do another VO2 max type of session 2 days after or the day after. It's not gonna go well. You do it right, like it feel tough. But the body is just not designed for that kind of sessions all the time. And this is a problem that I see a bit too often amongst runners that are new to running. So they think they need to always push hard. So you ask them to run a lactate threshold interval session, and they make it a VO2 max session. So they run faster than they should. So instead of running 5:10 per kilometer, they're gonna go down 4:30 because they feel good.
And the adaptations you're looking for is not going to happen at that.
No, it's a different stress. Completely different stress. So but also they're doing it for longer. If I'm running VO2 max intervals, the range that's going to be of interest to play around it is going to be around 2 minutes to 6 minutes, I would say, intervals. And 6 minutes, I tell you, you want to...
6 minutes is about as long as you should go.
You want to finish. But then if I'm giving a 6 by 6 minutes at anaerobic threshold, but the athlete has decided it's going to be run at VO2 max intensity, it's a hell of a workout. So not good. Always better to be staying within the good range of speed, heart rate, and to be respecting what's on the plan.
This is, I mean, it's been interesting kind of hearing you talk about this for the last 45 minutes. It's very apparent to me that you have a passion in doing this. And one of the things that, gives me a little bit of reason why is because you used to do this yourself. You used to race professionally, you used to race nationally.
Nationally, right? Not professionally, sadly, but
But this was your career for how many years?
I raced for 11 years.
Okay. And then I'm wondering, knowing what you know now, were these things available to you as a runner? And to what extent? I want to know, to what extent has running evolved because of the science?
Actually, a lot. I think there are lots of things that we know now that we didn't know back then. A lot more information is available now. Really, with just with Instagram, you can learn so much. You gotta select really because
it could be good and bad information.
Yeah,
right?
My God. I've seen crazy bad stuff really online, but also sometimes things are really relevant and really good actually. Things that are being shared by my peer, running specialists or the coaches or the physiologists. I tend to think that all the content you'd find online is always going to be more relevant if it comes from studies, actual studies. So if someone's going to be saying something about something, I want to see where is this information coming from.
Right.
It is if there's a team of scientists that have worked on it, then okay, cool. What was the panel?
Right.
100 athletes, recreational, professional, 1,000 athletes, female, male, all of that. I need to understand. Okay, this category has been studied for a specific type of information we're trying to get, like why female are getting more injured in such area than men, and vice versa. Or what's the effect of this type of training on this category of athletes and so on. But basically the idea is, this is coming from actual studies, or is it a guy who's just throwing information like this?
Your bro science.
So exactly, the bro science. But a lot of these stuff are now available online. So I think a lot of athletes are more aware about what they're doing. And they can find this information very easily. Back when I raced, it was all about trusting the process, trusting the coach. Myself, I had no idea why I was doing something.
You were just taking their word for it.
I was just taking it, And this guy was my coach for 11 years. He was like my grandfather really much, because I was just spending so much time with him. He was He was retired at the time, but really taught me a lot of the stuff. I wouldn't say the scientific stuff because that was not really his thing.
Yeah.
Studying the things and understanding the science behind, but he just knew all this stuff. It was almost like behind the scene, you know. He wouldn't tell us why we're doing something, but he just made us do it. Yeah,
and it would work for you.
it worked for me.
I guess it's
for a lot of athletes actually.
I guess back then it was more about the best you could do is you have your runners do it and then you observe and you get the data in terms of results.
Yeah.
And then you just work with the trends of the results. If it's making everyone's times faster, let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
If the times plateau or get slower, then we need to revisit and see what didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Also now we've got wearables, you know, all this stuff we didn't have back then. Like now you can really measure your heart rate. Easily. I would say you got to be careful with this as well. I think it's an important thing to say about the technology. Watches are not accurate on their own. You got to have a chest strap or armband really to get proper heart rate data. Again, what I was saying before, it's all algorithm. But so it's calculating, you know, your VO2 max based on the data you provide. So the speed at which you're going, your heart rate and so on.
Yeah.
But for quite a lot of people, the data is going to be wrong, simply because the watch itself is using a laser going through the skin and counting how many times blood is going through your vein. But there's a lot of things in between. There can be air, there can be sweat, there can be your whatever, like the amount of fat you've got compared to others and so on. So just the watch on its own is never going to be a good way of measuring the heart rate. I would always recommend people to get either a chest strap or an armband. This is less invasive. This is the latest technology as well, to get proper heart rate values for the quality runs at least. I'm not saying for the easy runs, it can be quite annoying to always have this chest strap on, the monitor on, but at least for the quality runs, if you want to have a strategy that is precise, chest strap or armband for sure.
And that's like one of the things that I'm finding myself doing is like I'm looking at my watch all the time. Right. Like, how's my heart rate? What is my aerobic performance looking like? I can look at my watch right now and it'll tell you that my estimated 5K time is 22 minutes and 13 seconds. So now like I'm obsessed with that number of like, all right, I guess if I do a 5K tomorrow, I better beat that number. So it's almost like this whole thing about paralysis by analysis is like you're getting so much information and I have such a lack of understanding of where these numbers come from or the context of how these numbers were created. Like you said, algorithms. It's almost crippling of like, I don't know what to do with all this information. So like if you just sat down with like a person who's running and they just started running today, what would be like your advice to give them to be like, this is what you need to do and this is what you don't need to worry about?
You're talking about the data you get from the watch, or
so like let's say I like someone's super excited, right? Someone is so excited, they got the right shoes, they have a chest strap, they have the watch, they have all this information, they're gonna put it on Strava, right? And there's gonna be so much data that's gonna be coming at this person. But when it comes to it, what is the important thing to focus on to improve your running?
As I mentioned before, start running easy, slow. Don't worry about what the watch is saying. Yes, if heart rate is going to be of importance for you, definitely get a chest strap or armband to get proper data. Otherwise, it's going to be all off. Like today, I say you need to run at 173 heartbeat, around this value, so 1-2 heartbeat more or less. Because this is the intensity you need for your lactate withdrawal session. If you're using your watch, you may get a value that is like 10 heartbeat lower or higher, or it's just gonna be like there's gonna be so much noise. Then you'd be like, oh, I need to go faster, I need to go slower. You'd be just trying to adjust all the time, thinking, oh, you're running at 510. But the truth is just because your watch is giving you wrong information. So make sure if you're gonna be using metrics data, get the right information at least. Then the other thing I see quite often, I think I must talk about it just like over 1 minute. But
let's go.
People tend to pay attention to the speed at which they're running when they run on a treadmill, but they base the speed on the watch. So the watch is giving them a live speed, right? But the problem is with the live speed of the watch, it's based on the GPS data. And you're running on a treadmill,
Yeah.
right? You're not moving.
Yeah.
So how is it calculating your
Is it
speed?
estimating just by your arm swing, or what is it doing?
No, it doesn't really. It does, yeah, with arm swing, but just other things as well. It's just calculating wherever you are and the
Okay,
motions and so
right.
on. But it's completely wrong. Yeah,
Okay.
like it's never like you are running. If you're running at 12 kilometers per hour on the
Yeah.
treadmill, this is what you are running.
Yeah.
Really, it's
Okay.
not changing.
Yeah.
Right. The treadmill is not going faster,
Right.
slower.
Right.
It is just constant. It's actually the most precise way of training when you run on a treadmill.
Okay.
Because the speed doesn't change at all.
Right. All the variables are out.
Yeah, if I'm giving you a 40 minutes block at lactate threshold, which is a good session, right? It's quite long. It's already a little more advanced in the program, let's say. I'm getting you to run 40 minutes at 5:10. You've got your chest strap on, you've got your armband on, whatever. I'm going to see that steady state of blood lactate accumulation appearing in the heart rate. So your heart rate's going to go up to that level, maybe 172.
Yeah.
Towards the end, you're going to be maybe at 176. There's going to be a bit of a drift as more fatigue accumulates. But still, I'm going to see a nice line, right? If you're running outside, you better be running at a track and having your splits correct every 400 meters.
Yeah.
Like you're running at 5 minutes per kilometer. That means every 400 you passing the line.
Right.
2 minutes 00. That's exactly the speed for 5
Okay.
minutes per K. Yeah. Rather than using your GPS data and so on, because wow, it's gonna be off all the time. Yeah. There's a huge gap between the distance covered realistically and really with the watch or what you have actually run on the track. Yeah.
Okay, because I'll tell you, I've run on a track maybe one time.
Yeah.
This whole up until March, and I've never ran on a treadmill on anything except for the test. Assessment.
Yeah.
So kind of almost like if you really want to work on these paces and on these thresholds, embrace either the treadmill or the track
to start. Yeah, because you don't know your intensity. Yeah. People are not used to this intensity when they start. Like the coach is going to tell them you need to run at exactly that speed, but they're going to be like, wow, I need to go faster, slower.
Yep.
It's a feeling as well. We used to run with feelings. My coach didn't tell me any pace, any speed. He just went by feeling back then. Yeah. So that's
what kind of feeling would he tell you? Is like run until
moderately hard.
Okay.
Yeah, like or really hard.
Like you can't speak a sentence or something like that.
Kind of this kind of stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Not even to that point, yeah. Like just very basic information, yeah. So it was really back then. It was really, odd a bit the way we were training.
Yeah.
But now, yeah. If someone is new to running, and they really don't know their speed, the intensity, and then they're in a place where potentially the GPS is gonna be off. Like Hong Kong is often pretty off
because of all like the interference.
Yeah. Lots of my runners, when they go traveling around and they run in other cities, other places, the GPS data is going to be more accurate. But in Hong Kong, it's quite bad. Yeah. So I'd recommend to run on the track at specific speed with the splits. So if you're running at a certain speed per kilometer, then you need to know your split per 200 meters, per 400 meters. So every time you pass the line, you look at your watch, you can lap and be like, okay, I was supposed to pass the 200 meters mark in 1 minute. I went 58, maybe I'm a little fast, or I went 107, I'm way too slow, I need to speed up a little bit, yeah. Or if you're doing your workout on the treadmill, boom, you go straight with the number. You can't get it wrong yet. The only way of getting it wrong on the treadmill is that you are using a treadmill that has a calibration that is very different from outside, and it happens. You can see this often if you travel a lot with the runners I train who need to travel around for work and so on.
Right.
They're going to be using always a treadmill from a different hotel. You're going to see crazy stuff there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, some treadmills can go like 40 seconds faster per kilometer, right? So imagine I'm getting you to run at 5 minutes 00, but the treadmill is basically running at 4:20.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a workout.
So it's almost like, then go by feel is going to be
It's going to be more like go by the other metric to be taken into account.
Yeah.
So your RPE,
Mm.
okay, I'm supposed to feel like this, but wow, I'm feeling a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing. Or you need to go with your heart rate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm supposed to hit that range, 172, 176. Okay. Typically, after 5 minutes, if I'm already at 179, something is wrong.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be the other way around too. If after 5 minutes you are just at 161, then be like,
or you can ride that high and be
this
like,
treadmill
man,
is a bit
I'm
slow."
so much faster today.
Yeah, I'm so good. Yeah, wow, I improved so much. No, it might be because the treadmill is actually slower. Yeah, then you need to.
Having to give that bad news to your athlete, like, look, you actually weren't that great. That
Yeah.
was a shitty
I
treadmill
have
you were
these
on.
comments sometimes. Yeah, I feel, wow, I feel so good. I've improved. No, it might be the treadmill is a bit off. Yeah.
Awesome. If people in Hong Kong want to find you and do these lactate threshold tests or VO2 max tests, remind us, where can we find you?
Joint Dynamics, really. Myself and my team, we are there based in Quarry Bay. So the clinic is in Quarry Bay. We start super early in the morning, 6, 7 a.m. They're at the gym, at the clinic until 9 p.m.
It's a great facility. You got you have running machines and as well as as strength training equipment as well. And then your Instagram is going to be Joint Dynamics as well.
Yeah, the Joint Dynamics Instagram. That's what it is. Really.
And you have your own Running with Erwan, as it is.
Erwan running things.
Erwan running things. There it is.
Yeah, my Instagram is not great. I'm not good at creating content.
I just I've seen you posting in the last couple of weeks, with your athletes and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes I post. Really, there's something really outstanding to say. It's always like results of my athletes.
Yeah.
I don't really create content with information regarding running.
But you're open to taking on more clients, or?
Myself, not really.
Okay. He's a busy
simply
man.
because I'm pretty busy.
Yeah.
But that's also why I built this team with me now. We're all running coaches, running specialists. But with a specialty. And so that it's good to have them now because indeed they're taking on the people I can't take, basically. Yeah.
So if anyone have any questions, we can at least ask you and you'll steer us in the right direction.
Ask me, and then the team is here to help. Yeah, it can be the one specialized in ultra long distance trail running. It can be the one, now we've got a new one who's doing training for high rocks runners. So yeah, basically it's all for running stuff, but road runners, trail runners, high rocks runners now.
All right. Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. It just popped in my head, but I'm gonna ask you one last question, and the only thing I ask of you is to be like 100% honest with me. Okay? Am I a good runner?
You're right.
like within your whole spectrum of clients, I'm all right.
Yeah.
So I'm not terrible.
No, you're not terrible. Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Right.
No, definitely not terrible. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna leave it at that.
We'll leave it here. Yeah, like that.
Erwan, thank you so much for being on the show again. We'll leave the links to your company's website as well as your Instagram onto the show notes. Thanks again for being a guest, and thanks again for putting me through the ringer on the lactate threshold and VO2 max. It's really made me more passionate about the science and I guess the habit of running. And I have you to thank for that. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.